I wanted to talk about a question I get from students pretty often, which is, how tight should I make my bow? The quick answer is, you don't want to make it so loose that the stick is constantly hitting the string when you're trying to play loudly. But you also don't want to tighten it up so much that you lose this obvious downward bend of the bow. This is called the camber, and we'll talk about that a little more in a minute. Where you go within that range is going to have to do partly with personal taste, partly with how strong your stick is, and it has a lot to do with how advanced of a player you are. I think advanced players and professionals, we make our bows a little bit more on the looser side. I've heard some teachers say things like, you're going to measure by one little finger's distance or something like that. I think the size of different little fingers changes so much. I don't know that's a good way to do it. And also, I don't really like students to have a reason to touch the hair of the bow with their fingers. Now, I can tell you, just measuring to get more scientific here, this is my nice French bow, and right in the middle of the bow, the gap between the hair and the stick when I have it tightened to the degree I like most of the time, is just under a centimeter. Let's call it 8 millimeters, or about 5/8 of an inch. So that's what I like to have. When I pick up bows from students, they have often over tightened them. And I think when you're a student, you haven't really learned how to make sound by getting close enough to the bridge, and you tend to press more. And so over tightening the bow is more of a normal thing, but you should really try not to over tighten your bow. Now, this is a cheap bow, some kind of synthetic, so I can kind of show you what an over tightened bow looks like. Now, if I go this much, it's almost straight, and that's already too much. I do every once in a while see something that looks like this. I hate to even do this, even with a bow that's not going to break, but you can see that this is actually bending slightly upward, and I can make this even more pronounced. I honestly see this every once in a while, and you definitely don't want to tighten your bow like this. There are a couple of reasons for this. First of all, if you have an actual wooden bow, this is very unhealthy for your bow. This camber is put in by the bow makers. The bow starts out straight, and it's a very skilled thing that they do to make that camber by heating up the stick. And if you tighten your bow too much, you can damage that camber of the bow. So you don't want to do that. The other thing that's even worse, if you put too much pressure on the bow by tightening it too much, that can actually break the bow right at the head, and you don't want that to happen either. Now, even if you have a plastic bow or carbon fiber or something like that, you don't want to over tighten it, because then you lose some of the good playing qualities of the bow. This camber was an innovation from about the late 1700s, and it allowed bows to be made longer, to play more sustained. Before that time, bows were shorter and they tended to be straight or curved the other way. If you look at this old picture of a guy playing a cello, you can notice that obviously clothing styles have changed a bit since then. Also, the way instruments are held and played, even the bow hold is different. But you can really see that the bow is shorter than our modern bows, and it's actually bending the other direction. If you over tighten your bow, you will miss some of these playing qualities that allow you to do all different kind of bow strokes, including sustained sound and off the string bow strokes and that kind of thing. So now let's just talk about really quickly how loose to make your bow when you put it away, because it's very important that you loosen your bow when you put it away. And you don't want to be so loose that the hair is flopping around like this, mainly because that can get tangled in things or caught in something as you're taking the bow out of your case. So I think it's good to just make it just to the point where the hair has a little firmness to it. Well, I hope this gives you some good guidance on how tight to make your bow. Experiment a little bit with it. I think in general, try to make your bow the loosest you can make it that you're comfortable playing, and definitely don't over tighten your bow.